Hey everyone, this is surreal right now, isn't it? First time for everything, eh? I can't even believe I'm saying this, really, to be honest. The first live recording of the podcast, Respawn of the Spectrum. This podcast that's certainly, well, I like to believe that it's getting a message out there. I like to believe it's doing what it's supposed to do, trying to get the word out about like autism and stuff. I'm hoping it's doing its job in doing that, and I hope it has achieved that frontier. Hopefully I don't know why I'm saying frontier, but maybe it's Star Wars Day. Maybe yeah, I don't mind putting some Star Wars puns in there. We are actually fastly approaching 150 streams and downloads as of this morning. It's we're actually gradually building up to it. We're not only that, but we're also building up to like 25 Spotify followers already. Like, we're starting to build up not just to 25, but also potentially to 30 followers by this week. And it's also kind of funny to think about these numbers, knowing about the fact, this week is going to be a very special week, because this week is, of course, it's going to be my birthday week, and very special episode, very, very special episode of the podcast this week, because it's going to be released. Obviously this podcast is actually going to be released on my birthday. How crazy is that? Chances are that I'm probably going to be like excited very happily and everything, and probably getting ready to like do the play with friends and stream and stuff, and do a very long stream, which I'm pretty much going to do on my birthday. So there's going to be a lot of hype around that. I think it's important for me to just say thank you to everyone who's for those who have listened to the podcast, and those who obviously come up message me and said like, look, you're doing a great thing here. You're literally getting a message across. You're getting you're trying to teach people how to basically about autism. You're trying to get people to understand it and stuff, because I always get reminded that not many people understand it. I will admit, it's incredibly frustrating that is the narrative in the world right now, that the world doesn't understand autism, this, autism, that. Making sure that a message is getting across, and I'm still feeling about my at least my messages are going across, and at least these podcast episodes are getting across to people, and hopefully I like to be hopeful that more and more people will actually just embrace us, at least accept that we can be good friends, we can be loyal friends, and we're not out here to cause problems to people. We're not out here to cause drama with people who just want to like paint us in this sort of bad image that we're kind of stealing friendships and stuff. No, we're not stealing friendships. We're out here kind of just minding our business, and more importantly, just wanting to make friends. That's all. I think that's how to really put it out there, really. That, obviously, by the way, for those who are listening to this after this live recording, I'm just excited about this week. I'm very excited about it. The first thing now in terms of how we're going to do this birthday special, in terms of the layout here, the first main topic of this particular episode, the 9th episode, the birthday special, I guess you could put it in there. We're going to obviously have a discussion about why accessibility is important. Bringing this up in the podcast, I'm hoping it's going to be enough to maybe convince game companies to do better at like supporting accessibility players, because trust me, these last couple of years, gaming companies have just been getting there has been a couple of gaming companies that have been getting very poorly when it comes to supporting accessibility players, and refusing to add certain accessibility features that would help certain disability players and stuff. And I'm hoping that we can get like a message across to why it's important for these people, and I'm hoping that hopefully my community and who are watching are going to help me like kind of get that message across to them, because we can hopefully you're doing great with the message out there. Hopefully the devs will. I hope so. The devs are going to hear me out, because or I'm hoping that at least if it's like a couple of companies, maybe all of them. I don't know. Maybe even I know it's crazy for me to say this, but Jeff Keighley happens to mention it on Summer Game Fest and say, hey, look, devs, you need to listen to this guy. This guy knows what he's talking about. It would be really cool to at least have his approval as like, hey, this guy actually kind of getting the message out there. I like that. I obviously have to praise him because he gives me opportunities to co-streams his Summer Game Fest and stuff, and I love that. It only needs to start with one and the others will follow. Absolutely. That's what I want to get across. So yeah, we're going to get the accessibility topic, and then obviously we'll have an opportunity to also answer, hopefully get some discussions and maybe even questions in regarding the accessibilities and stuff. And then I think the later half of the episode we'll definitely obviously have to acknowledge the birthday, obviously, haven't we? Because it's going to be out on Spotify and that on my birthday. We're going to acknowledge it somewhere. Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a bumper, but it's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a long one, to be honest, but I think it's going to be worth it because at least a good discussion is going to be out there, and hopefully people are going to love it. Because I think it's also cool because the long episode I did with Sunny actually got a lot of people interested, so I'm hoping this is going to be up there. Hopefully we'll find that out. Well, I think it's important to sort of get a context as to why accessibility is important in game. I know there's going to be some that are going to be like, oh, why is it so important? Why should we even care? Why should we care about accessibility features? Because trust me, there's going to be a couple of gamers there who are going to complain. It's like, oh, we don't need these features, we don't need this, we don't need that, because there are. The moral of the story is that it's essential. It's essential to over 400. Well, I know it's kind of crazy for me to say this. Over 400 million disability gamers to enjoy, navigate, and fully participate in game. You can imagine when gaming first started, I guess with Nintendo, but I like to look at gaming properly starting with PlayStation and Xbox, because that's when proper game consoles finally came in. When these game consoles first came out, there wasn't such thing as an opportunity for you to change accessibility settings, because I don't think there was many games that had that option. In fact, I don't think there was many games that considered that an option, and I don't think, to be honest, I don't think there was any technology to allow that into games, to be honest. I feel like for a lot of these like PlayStation 1, I think PlayStation 2, you could say that the first two PlayStations probably had a very difficult time trying to find a way to add accessibility features in them. And then the same with the Xbox One and the Xbox. They didn't really properly go online till 360, really. So that's when they properly did the whole online stuff. I think for the early days of game consoles, it was pretty tricky to get any accessibility features in games, to be honest, because many online games to start off with. And two, it just, since the last decade, really, since they've started to finally embrace the whole accessibility, online gaming, that sort of thing, it's wild. It really is, and it's crazy. I will admit, it is crazy with the whole accessibility stuff. We really have, and it's also more importantly, it also expands an audience reach. Of course, we have to acknowledge that. The fact that roughly 1 in 7 disability gamers may not be able to play or return to games, lack of accessibility features, so that's another thing we have. And then more importantly, accessibility ensures everyone, regardless of ability, the opportunity to play, prevents the exclusion of disability players, because trust me, there are going to be, I'm sure there's probably some games out there that haven't added any accessibility features and probably makes disability players feel excluded from said game. And it's wild how I'm still kind of mind blown by that. Games out there that just don't want to accept disability players, how is that even a thing? And then obviously in terms of some of these accessibility features that I'm referring to, this is subtitles, remap controls, the changing difficulties with it, especially if you're playing single player games, and basically just improve usability for players and offering them a more enjoyable experience. And also it's also important because there are some players who are visually impaired. These features will obviously include high contrast mode, text-to-speech, screen readers for low visible, and obviously blind gamers, of course, are going to benefit from that. Simple UI and game speed to improve on that side of the game. From nice to have features that are basically just industry standard at this point, because luckily there are a lot of game companies that do think about accessibility players a lot more than most other other companies because they just, they have a better sense of knowledge, I think is the way to look at it, really. Is in order for us to be successful, we have to have an accessibility feature that will, help blind players and all types of disability players, right? They can't enjoy the game. They're going to struggle. They're going to, it doesn't even matter what game it is, whether it's a shooting game, an adventure game, action adventure. If they don't have some of these, don't have these features, they're not going to be able to feel included. And I mean, I'll be interested to actually know if there is any people in my community that do use accessibility features, because I think it'll be nice to get sort of an input. Some of those features are important because it improves the games for the developers, and also the developers care about, especially that there will be some enjoying their games and they have to go out their way to basically make these features accessible. Just kind of find a way to just make sure they enjoy the games and not have kind of left out or put onto the sidelines. Because there is a game, however, there is one game recently, a little game known as Marathon, that lacks the accessibility features, and I remember seeing add any form of accessibility features on the release of the game, which is absolutely disgusting. That care about that portion of the community, even though this is a company that embraced accessibility players with their recent titles. Especially, you can imagine all the flashing lights and the flashing graphics that are coming up on the screen when you're playing, and it'll be frustrating for me because I can't stand that stuff. These players to go through games where they keep constantly getting flashes all over the screen. How does that make sense? Why do we easier to use for those players by removing those weird graphics when you're shooting players, so that it doesn't stop, they get annoyed anytime they get killed because they couldn't see the player. If a game doesn't have those features, you have to make those features available. That should be the standard, in my opinion. And there are some games out there that don't offer these features. I feel they should do an update to put those features in. I don't think they should be leaving the game without any form of accessibility option, because that's not fair for those who deserve those options. It's not fair. It's good. It gives them full participation, navigation, and enjoyment. And the fact that it also more importantly, it removes barriers or motor conjunctivity, visual improvements, promoting inclusion, equality, and social connection. There you go. Because I think it's also a good thing that especially if it's an online game, and I think it's mostly from disability players or gamers who don't have many friends, when they connect with a person that has disability through gaming. And I guess how they first started gaming and they instantly clicked and stuff, and it's stories like that it's just so amazing. We need to encourage that more. We need to, these are types of stories friendships you want to hear about. You don't want to are not real friendships, or friendships that don't, or it just I guess people just taking advantage of people. No, we want to hear more of these disability players making friends with people and having a great time. That's the sort of accessibility you want to see through gaming. As well as much as as well as the accessibility features, the social side of it is also important at the same time. It gives them a chance to not only form friends, but kind of have, I guess, build a group of friends that will help them help them sort of get used to games, and and literally support them throughout when they struggle with certain games. There's a game like Portal, but with color painting guns, and they hear people with color blindness had issues, and then added them to the best colorblind I've ever seen. The game is Chrome Gun. I would be shocked. I'm going to say this. I'll be shocked if GTA 6 doesn't have a way for accessibility players to play it. I'll be very, very shocked if Rockstar hasn't sat down and thought, okay, let's feature an accessibility feature in this game. Especially the online. Sony and PlayStation, they made sure that their consoles have accessibility features, because they've got loads of accessibility features on PS5. So it's not just the games, it's also the game consoles as well. So that was pretty much mostly the important side of accessibility. I'm sure I'm sure there's probably people probably some in my community that are left-handers, because there is a website that called Scoop in the UK. They cover disability disability and accessibility within gaming. They did a whole report, or yeah, it was around 2020 when they did this, or 2021. They did some findings. 66% of gamers were impaired, or conditions say that they face barriers or issues related to gaming. So the biggest barriers being the affordability of suitable assisted or adaptive technology, judging by the fact that, you know, prices for controllers and consoles have gone up. That's going to become an even bigger issue to this very day. The most used assisted technology are sound options and the adjustment to sensitivity on controllers, so that's now a big. 50% of disability gamers say that the information on the accessibility of games has affected their decision to buy it. Nice to see that. I would imagine it's gone up by now. Hopefully it has. 40% of disability gamers have brought games that haven't been able to play due to poor accessibility. And 40% of disability gamers have experienced negative attitudes from other gamers related to disability, impaired, or conditions. So I would imagine they're referring to like bullying and stuff from other gamers, which, yeah, that's, nobody should be bullying accessibility players, bullying them. Nobody should be like telling them that, you know, oh, just because you can't see, you can't play, or anything of such the kind. That there are gamers out there who, well, there are certain groups of gamers that like to pick on accessibility players whilst playing the games and stuff, and it's really sad to see that there was like, they, from that, you know, findings, like 40% were I would imagine the findings have gotten even worse since then, but if it has, I like to be hopeful we're going to get to a point where things improve. There are gamers out there who just can't see sense, and they can't, you know, support these players long term, or you embrace, you at least give these players the support they deserve. Like, why be dicks about it? You know, I'm sorry for the language, but I have to say it. You know, it's just, there's no need for that. There's no need to, you know, just kind of treat them horribly just because they are not playing the game how you want them to play. Well, if you don't like it, how about just stop playing and leave them alone? Let them enjoy the game at their own pace. You know, if they like to play a certain way, then let them play a certain way. If they're struggling, why not help them instead of choosing to like make insults because you're not getting what you want, you know what I mean? They've also done some research when it comes to interests and behaviors, where they mention here that the findings from this survey indicates that disability gamers are more engaging than non-disability gamers across key platforms and touch points. There's also more likely to view gamers as their prime hobby and spending more time gaming per session than non-disability gamers. They did and it's also interesting because they bring up Discord here. Disability gamers are more likely to use Discord, with a 45% of disability gamers and a 44% non-disability gamers stated they used Discord. There are more disability gamers that use Discord than there is non-disability. They wouldn't understand. I mean, I thought they wouldn't understand the whole prospect of Discord, but somehow they do. They understand Discord, the add-ons and subscriptions. So like the first graph, they look at like the last 12 months of, so I would imagine they're referring to like DLCs and Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, that sort of thing. You know, when asked the question, do they buy add-ons and subscriptions, 63% of disability players say yes, compared to the 50% of non that have said no, said yes. 37% say no, disability players, and then 50% of non-disability players say no to like buying subscriptions and add-ons and stuff, which I think is. And then of course, when it comes to streaming and esports, now this is where it gets interesting. They were asked the question, do they do any of the following activities when it comes to streaming and esports? So 39% of disability players say they don't watch any streams or esports. And then obviously 53 non-disabilities said like no, they don't do that. But when it comes to watching gamers live, 42% of disability players do watch gamers streaming, so they do watch streamers, compared to the 28 that are non-disabilities that watch it. And then when it comes to esports, 25% of disability players apparently watch esports. Apparently that's a thing, compared to 19% of non. And then when it comes to esports tournaments, 16% of disability players watch that, was 13 non watch that as well. Also, when it comes to barriers facing disability gamers, they did a whole chart on this as well. And what they say here is that the most common barrier is affordability, which is obviously of these sensible, suitable assisted adapted technology, which 30% have answered that. And then the following by the knowledge of or time required to set up an assist or adaptive tech, which is 23%. And then the limited choice of availability, 22% have answered to that. And the inaccessibility consoles, 18%. And inaccessibility games, 17%. What was also very fascinating is that 25% do seem to use sound options. So yeah, so 25% use sound options. 23% are using either subtitles or captions or even sensitivity for mouse and controls. 21% are basically using the increased font size. 19% are using the display features that are on these like consoles and games. The ability to tune the color cores, 15% are doing that, and then the ability to change colors, 14%. So it seems to me that there are more people that are doing sound options, subtitles, captions, as well as changing sensitivity seem to be the common things that they change the most. And then when it comes to hardware, there is more changing the sensitivity for controllers compared to remapping, which is 16%. The one-handed controller, 14%. Haptic feedback, which is 14%. Head-operated controllers, so they're talking VR, that is 11%. Mouth operation game controllers, 11%. And then feet-operated game controllers, 9%. So it seems that the sensitivity is the main thing that they're concerned about. When it comes to softwares, it seems like the common feature is visual keyboards, apparently. Have you played a game? They were asked the question, have you played a game that you haven't been able to play due to poor accessibility? Only 41% have said yes, and then 59% said no. Well, it's interesting because 33% said they weren't able to return, which means that only 1 in 7 disability gamers had lost their money due to poor accessibilities in games, which especially with these ongoing talks about games getting, digital games getting removed from players' like libraries and stuff, because that's now, I'm just amazed that 33% have not been able to get their money back, or 1 in 6, 1 in 7 haven't been able to get their money back for like or accessibility in games. It's a lot higher than I expected to be. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a lot higher than I expect. It would be interesting to see refunds state by platform too. Yeah, it would. I'll be interested to. They've also got a section about negativity attitudes, right? So they mention here that 2 in 5 have experienced negative attitudes by other gamers related to disability impaired conditions in the last 12 months from when the survey results were released in December 2020. So we might as well read these comments, right? Because it gives you sort of a sense of how their recipient. The first response, it says this: it affected my mental health by knocking my confidence and making me feel bad about one of the things I can do and enjoy. And then we got the next one here saying it made me feel bad for being different. They shouldn't feel bad for being different. They should never feel bad. Honestly, I'm going to say this: if anybody makes you feel bad for being different, then they're a loser. I now play alone. It's just really, 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 really sad to see that, to see an accessibility player say that they're going to play on their own. They're not going to want to make friends through online games anymore because of the amount of hate that they get from players. It's just discuss the difference in people are what makes gaming great. Exactly. Pete's right on the money on here. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter about because it doesn't matter like what sort of person you are. You should gaming is great when you get to we should be able to embrace the fact that we're connecting with people. We should be able to, especially in Call of Duty. I know there tends to be a lot of people who like to have an attitude in Call of Duty. There was always those players who like to tell people to shut up on Call of Duty, because I was one of those people who got told that whenever I was in like in-game chats and stuff. But oh my gosh, the language is horrendous. Respect others. Because I do. I've spent all my life respecting people. The game developers who are responsible for them, whether it's Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex, you name it, they need to do better at like making sure that accessibility players are in a safe. So in terms of the the key developments of what they're hoping to achieve with accessibility this year, we might as well bring this up here. So in terms of the improvements that they're introduced last year, they're going to be establishing 24 plus tags to identify in-game accessibility features across digital storefronts, with the exception of wide adaptive by console manufacturers. So apparently console manufacturers are going to have their own sort of tags, it seems. Accessibility for content and UI. So it seems developers are highly prioritizing high contrast modes, scaled scrollable UIs, comprised menus for navigations for players with low visions, subtitle customizations, including speaker identification, font adjustments, emotion and tune tags becoming the standard, so they want those to become the standard. Regarding audio descriptions, they're wanting to continue the momentum for standardizing audio descriptions for pre-rendered cutscenes and hopes for implementation within active gameplay in 2026, so that's going to be helpful. Also going to be doing early accessibility planning. So the industry is looking to integrate accessibility into early stages of development and marketing to ensure players can refer accessibility options before purchase. So that's going to be really helpful. And they're also impairing technologies such as analyzing how, for instance, players will say control limitations, find new ways to play. So they're going to find new ways of helping accessibility players to play. We're going to be a summer showcase for accessibility, which they have their own sort of summer showcase that's going to be happening in the summer. So that'll be something to watch if you're an accessibility player. So that'll be, I believe that's meant to take place around Summer Game Fest time if you're an accessibility player. So you might want to tune in around that time if you want to see what accessibility games are coming. They also mentioned a platform to find games to meet specific and individual accessibility needs, so that's good. They're also, so this whole tagging system is to help players identify games with specific accessibility features. So let's look at Star Wars Galactic Racer. I think that might be a good. Oh yeah, there we go. So they've got an accessibility features section. So the game, this is good actually. They've got quite a bit. So they've got visuals, which includes clear text, large text, color alternatives, high contrast visuals, visual comfort, audio cue adjustments, directional audio indicators. And then when it comes to audio, they have volume control, mono audio, 3D audio, screen reader, visual cue alternatives, subtitles and captions. They have playable without subtitles, clear subtitles, large subtitles, captions, clear captions, large captions. Controls, we have control mapping, adjustive stick sensitivity, adjustive stick intervention, plays without motion controls, playable without touch controls, playable without control vibrations, playable without adaptive trigger effects. So that's helpful for accessibility players like this. And then they also add the additional, you can also change the difficulty, control reminders, and game pausing. Yes, they've got game pausing features for them, which I like that. You see, I had a good feeling Star Wars Galactic Racer was going to be good for this sort of thing, and lo and behold, they've proven me right, so that's good. When that is going to be, so if you're an accessibility player, you'll be pleased to know that this year's showcase, Friday the 5th of June, so the same day as Summer Game Fest, which, by the way, yes, Summer Game Fest is happening Friday the 5th of June. It's going to be shown from 4 p.m. UK time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, so it's going to be on basically at 2 hours before Summer Game Fest. I think 2 or a couple of hours before the main Summer Game Fest show that happens that night, where they're going to be covering. So in terms of what to expect, well, you can expect games that show with detail a selection of their accessibility settings, offerings, accessibility design choices, to make sure that gamers watching at home know what with confidence if they'll be able to play an exciting looking game that grabs their attention, and also that they're going to aim to make sure that if a game looks exciting, you don't have to worry about getting hyped, only to learn that the game doesn't support your needs as a player. So that, but however, though, they do say there is a difference here, where they say, I'm also discussing with some of the large scope. They're discussing with large scope developers about potentially being involved in the 2026 Summer Showcase. My hope is that we'll be able to ramp up the scale of some of the announcements you'll get to see in the show, alongside highlighting impressive upcoming indie titles. So there is a possibility that bigger companies could be appearing on the showcase this year. She's put an email on the web link. I'll put a link probably on the podcast for any game developers who want to show off their games for accessibility. Oh yeah, there you go. Autism Direct returns on Saturday the 6th of June. So we got a date. We got a date. That is brilliant. So yes, the 6th of June 2026 is going to be when the Wholesome Direct, which is under the Awesome Game stuff, that's when they're going to have their showcase. It's going to be from 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, where they'll be showing uplifting and cozy games, because they're all about cozy over there. But I would imagine there's going to be some accessibility titles in there as well, because I'm pretty sure they have shown accessibility games on that showcase. I was watching it with Angel Plushie last year. Yes, I've got to give a shout out to her because she loves her Wholesome Showcase. I'll let her know about this later when we because I'm going to be playing with her later. But yeah, so they do a lot of cozy stuff, and they got a lot of cozy games, by the way, a lot of cozy games on that showcase. If you love coziness, that is the place you want to be. It gets shown on Twitch, it gets shown on YouTube. IGN streams it as well, so if you because IGN shows all the showcases, so if you're somebody who subscribes to IGN, you're going to be able to see it from there. You can also see it from the Game Awards YouTube channel, because they stream co-streams of all the showcases that happen, like Xbox, PlayStation, etc. So they're going to be streaming it over there as well. GameStop will be doing the same. Steam's going to be streaming it. I think the majority are going to mostly be watching on Twitch or YouTube. Accessibility section, really. Yeah, like I said, my birthday's coming up on, was going to be, well, by the time that this podcast releases, it's going to be my birthday, as I mentioned. Despite the fact that I didn't think I was going to make any good friends, I was able to make some good friends along the way, and I was able to build friendships that bond, and friendships that, well, not just, not only did they become best friends, but they're kind of built, we're kind of sort of like building a family in a way, and it's just really lovely to have the group of friends that you'll be able to like play games with or have a fun time with, and for them to understand you. And I just hope that whilst I am celebrating my birthday with all the some of these amazing people, I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do a lot of fun stuff with many of them. Hopefully you get to watch, as I mentioned earlier, the Wholesome Showcase, the Summer Game Fest, PlayStation State of Play, Nintendo Direct, Xbox Showcase, maybe the future game show, if people, because I just want to be able to experience these showcases with friends. Chances are I'm probably going to get the birthday messages on my birthday, but I'm just gonna say year ahead, thank you for celebrating. Thank you to all my best friends for celebrating my special day with me and wanting to have me included in game sessions when you can. And I'm here really, but yes, if you want to say, as I said before, if you want to listen to the podcast, it is on Apple Podcasts. There'll be links in the description for that, as well as YouTube. It's premiering on YouTube, and first time it's on video form as well. So I guess we'll try and embrace video form versions of the podcast going forward, I suppose. Or we'll see how it goes. If this one doesn't get a lot of love, then this has been Respawn on the Spectrum. Thank you for listening. Continuing to support my podcast, and we'll catch you again next episode. So see you then.